Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. So, those white nationalists have amazing recruiters. That's right, they are the best. But before we get started, how about you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please leave a comment down below. From New York Daily News, a 68-year-old man was punched in the face by this stranger while riding the #1 train in Tribeca Friday. You mother effing Asian. He's in critical condition. A man who helped. If I saw this happen again, I would do the right thing. No, you wouldn't. And there's a couple reasons why you wouldn't. Because the first time around, you didn't do the right thing. So there's precedent. The second time around, you'll probably freeze again. And also, if you have somebody willing to beat grandpa within an inch of his life, you don't know if they have a knife, if they have a gun, if they have brass knuckles, if they have some sort of weapon on them that could literally kill you. So sometimes it's better to ensure that he doesn't die than it is to confront the person assaulting him, especially in New York. If this was a place like Texas, you could just smoke the dude and then just have just basically have your day in court with a jury of 12 peers and basically play the criminal justice casino at that point, just knowing that you did the right thing. But you could not do that in New York because they would just throw you in jail. But the reason why I asserted that the white nationalists have the best recruiters is because this is a 30-something-year-old black man who beat this Asian man within an inch of his life. If the white nationalists can recruit young, fit black men into their organization to commit acts of violence against Asians, then the world as we know it is going to end soon under the reign of terror of white nationalism. Of course, I'm saying that as a joke. From Tim Pool, Stop Asian Hate, from Jack Posobiec. Last month, Yahoo News, Alex something, was joking around about Asian journalist Mr. Andy Ngo being hospitalized in an attack. The LA Times printed it along with his justification of the use of violence. Ngo was punched and kicked as well. He claims to have suffered a cerebral hemorrhage. The violence was obviously criminal. What goes unmentioned is that Ngo has a history of embedding with right-wing groups. So basically, he's victim blaming, guys. He's basically saying Andy Ngo shouldn't have been hanging around with those people. Andy Ngo shouldn't have been wearing what he was wearing. He wouldn't be the victim if he wasn't wearing what he was wearing. If he wasn't documenting what he was documenting, he wouldn't be a victim, guys. This is bananas. In Unmasked, he eagerly dons the martyr's vestments, describing the attack with such self-serving detail, you'd think he'd been liberating Rome. What a douchebag. And this was just last month when it was okay to bash on Asians because they were still vessels of white supremacy. And I'll explain that here in a second. But what I'm so confused about is just like Candace Owens and Thomas Sowell, these black conservatives, when you have Asian conservatives, they get attacked by these social justice warriors because they're seen as embracing whiteness. And I'll explain that here in a second because they basically explained it themselves. And not only that, it's so disingenuous. You can't just be a victim because you're a Democrat. Democrats shouldn't inherently be a victim. If you're a victim or basically if you vote Democrat, hold on, let me back up. If the only way for you to be a victim is to be a Democrat, then maybe you shouldn't be a Democrat. That way you're not a victim, right? You think that would make sense? Why would you choose to be a victim? Wouldn't you choose to not be a victim? So I don't understand. And that's why when they want to expand the votes and all this stuff, and you have conservatives say, no, maybe it should be a little more difficult to vote. They're not saying that there should be like poll tests or a poll tax. They're saying, hey, just fill out some paperwork. What's so hard about that? If it's too difficult, if you're too much of a victim to fill out a sheet of paper, then maybe you have no reason to be voting because obviously there's something wrong with you. Maybe you don't have the mental capacity to be voting. Hot take. I understand. But think about this. If you're incapable of filling out the documents to vote, what makes people think that you have the understanding of who you're voting for, what policies you're voting for? it's BS. If you're just pandering to the lowest common denominator, like the Democrats are, then you're just going to basically dumb down the country. That's why these education systems in these blue cities are as horrible as they are. From Wesley Yang. Back in 97, a book called Beyond All the Reason, The Radical Assault on Truth in American Law, argued that the radical multiculturalism emerging within the critical race theory and allied movements logically committed its bearers to anti-Semitic and anti-Asian animus. In 2019, at a diversity training workshop sponsored and paid for by the NYC Department of Education, presenters told a class that Asians were on the upper rungs enough in proximity to white privilege to benefit from white supremacy. According to this article in Ford, a string of attacks targeting Jews in Brooklyn may be aimed at their hyper-whiteness. That's right, folks. Jews are pegged as representatives of gentrification because in many poor Brooklyn neighborhoods, they are, as Avi Leshes, a director of economic development at Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, he pointed out to hotly contested development projects like the one in the Broadway Triangle in East Williamsburg from a Hasidic-owned company. And while the attacks are targeting Jews, it may be because Black people identify Judaism as a form of almost hyper-whiteness. That's bananas. So, okay, go ahead and rationalize away hate crimes. Go ahead and rationalize away racism, because that's what it is. If you have a black person attacking a Jewish person for being a Jewish person is no different than a white person attacking a Jewish person for being a Jewish person. There is no difference whatsoever. It is both a hate crime. But of course, Democrats don't want to basically push that narrative. They want you to think of the black person as the victim because, of course, they're being repressed by the whiteness of the Jew. They sound like Nazis when they say it. That the Jews are secretly colluding to destroy the black community. That sounds an awfully like the Klan. Sounds an awful lot like the Nazis. That the Jews in the background are secretly colluding to destroy the world economy and destroy these communities so they can make money. The Democrats are so anti-Semitic. They are so anti, basically self-governance, drawing a blank here, guys, and I apologize. But, I apologize. It's an open secret throughout Silicon Valley that companies seeking to diversify their workforces have resorted to moratoriums on white and Asian male hires. This has led to lawsuits against Google and internal dissension within Microsoft. It's so interesting to look back 20 years and see what the thinkers of that time saw latent in the then novel doctrines emerging from legal academia and to compare it against what has since occurred. The authors discuss the foundational CRT text, Derek Bell's Space Traders, speculative fiction, in which the Jews are portrayed as having an interest in preserving the black presence in America as a shield against Gentile rage. So, just remember, self-reliance is a sin. That's what I was going to say. Self-reliance is a sin in the eyes of Democrats. If you are self-reliant, then you are an embodiment of white supremacy and you are the enemy. And if you are black, if you're Asian, if you're Jewish, then you are the enemy. You embody whiteness and you will be burned down. And that's bananas. I don't understand how that's not seen as racist. But according to Democrats, it's not. Because if you are attacking someone who's exhibiting signs of whiteness or basically acting in ways of white supremacy and you are attacking them, then you are just attacking whiteness. You are attacking white supremacy. You are not attacking an Asian person. You are attacking the white supremacy that they embody. Therefore, it's not a hate crime. Those mental gymnastics are sociopathic level, Olympic level mental gymnastics, and it's bananas. James Lindsay, top expert in sexiness. Man, did we ever call it with this meme last summer? White people are born with certain privileges and traits which give them immutable advantages over other races. No one must ever forget the inherent advantages of the white race. This belief must be taught in and accepted by every town, institution, and person in America. And who said this? Well, Robin DeAngelo from White Fragility, of course, and the KKK. So, people on the right have been saying that this critical race theory bull BS, it's just repackaged. It's just a more sexy version of the KKK. It's a left-wing well, the KKK was a left-wing version of the KKK, but it is now just mainstream tolerated Democrat racism. That's why you have segregated graduations. That's why you have white-only institutions. That's why you have white-only cafes. That's why you have non-POC events. That's why you have whatever. And it's extremely segregated. They see that as progress. I see that as regressive. Progress would be what Martin Luther King saw, where my kids are seen by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. When I see you and I see you as a human piece of garbage, Robin DeAngelo, it's not because you're a white woman. It's because you are a piece of garbage and you're a racist. You admit that you're a racist. You admit that you grab your purse whenever you see a group of black people. That was in your book. And that you felt anxious at the thought of having to be around a group of black people. That's something a racist would feel. Yet she's celebrated as some sort of anti-racist. So claiming that you're anti-racist while being racist doesn't make you not racist. It just means that you are going to call everybody else a racist so you feel better about you yourself being a racist. That's what being an anti-racist is. And if you're too dumb to figure that out, maybe you should sit down and figure out why exactly you're an anti-racist. That's all I'm really going to say about that right now, guys. From Jack Posobiec. The Pentagon is freaking out because the extremism stand-downs are backfiring and the troops keep asking about BLM riots and Antifa. Ross Cameron, U.S. military leaders say American troops are confused and very emotional, uneducated, don't understand. Portland riots are good, Capitol riots are extremists. American allies say, you are not filling us with confidence. We prefer American troops to U.S. military leaders. So, some troops have drawn equivalencies between the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol and last year's protest for racial justice during recent stand-downs to address extremism, wearing military's top enlisted leader. In a Thursday briefing with reporters at the Pentagon, Ramon CZ Colon Lopez, the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said that some troops have asked when the January 6th riot is brought up, how come you're not looking at the situation that was going on in Seattle prior to that? He said that is one example of the mindset of many military leaders are encountering, and he is concerned about the way that some people are looking at the current environment. Colon Lopez said that the confusion some younger troops have expressed shows why training sessions on extremism are needed. So basically, they are now indoctrinating troops. They are now purity testing troops. So first it's going to be, hey, we need these sessions on extremism. And then it's going to be, if you don't conform, you're going to be kicked out. It's going to happen in the next year or so. I already bet that within the first 100 days, they're going to invoke the 25th Amendment on Joe Biden. I think within the first year or two that they're going to start kicking people out of the military who basically refuse to bend the knee for this whole anti-racism BS, this whole extremist BS, because there's no evidence that extremism is playing a part in the military. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered the stand down February 5th and gave units across the military 60 days to discuss extremism in the ranks with troops. The military's policies are clear, he said. Troops are not to advocate for or participate in supremacist, extremist, or criminal gang doctrine, ideology, or causes. The military remains an apolitical organization, Colon Lopez said, and it doesn't matter if an extremist group is far right or far left, both are off limits. Well, here, the next one. If it's an organization that is actually imposing harm, threat, destruction, criminal activity, and so on, then we don't condone that behavior. We're focusing on letting people know exactly what the oath tells us to do when it comes to obeying lawful orders, remaining apolitical, and basically being good stewards of the society. But as the training sessions took place, some themes emerged that worried leaders. Those conducting the sessions wanted to make sure that the military members understand the difference between Seattle and the January 6th riot in DC. But some of our younger members are confused about this. No, they're not confused. So that's what we need to go ahead and talk to them about and educate them on to make sure that they know exactly what they can and cannot do. So it's okay, I guess, for people in the military to capture city blocks in Seattle and shoot people and murder them in cold blood in the streets. That is fine to basically have an armed occupation of sovereign U.S. territory in a major U.S. city. That is A-okay. But to go to a speech of the sitting president of the United States, that is seen as extremism and not to be tolerated. Wrap your head around that sort of hypocrisy. To say the military is apolitical at this point is to say you are peeing on me and I say it's raining. This sort of doublespeak is going to break the country. We are about to fight a war with China. Iran is threatening terror attacks inside the United States of America. And we are dealing with this BS? We are wasting our time on this? And even when we are wasting our time on this, you are not even being honest about it? You are horrible leaders. And he drew a distinction between those who lawfully exercised their First Amendment rights to protest during last summer's protest in support of racial justice and the Black Lives Matter movement, and those who latched on to the protest to loot, destroy property, and commit other crimes. But sometimes, he said, younger troops see messages on TV that blur the lines between the two, and we needed to educate them on the difference. No, that's not what we meant. There were people advocating against social justice, racial injustice, and everything else, and it is the right of the citizens. So it's just, they're brainwashing troops. They're trying to brainwash the incoming wave of troops to be social justice warriors. And we can't have a military of pussies. We can't. It's not possible. There's a reason why China is trying to create a hyper-masculine military. They're trying to defeminize men because they know in order to basically put their boots on the neck of the rest of the world, they need a masculine military. They don't need a woke military. They don't need a feminine military. They don't need a trans-inclusive military. They need a military that will go and destroy things. They need a military that will go and break things. They will need a military that will go and kill people because that's what they do. And unfortunately, men seem to be experts at killing people. So allow men to be men. Allow men in the military to be manly and do their damn jobs. Their jobs are not to make you feel good about yourself. They're not to make you feel inclusive. The only time a soldier's job is to make you feel inclusive is to make you feel inclusive within that team. But if you're on the other side of that rifle, the only thing you're going to feel inclusive with is with that damn bullet as it enters your body. That's the only inclusive act that soldiers take part in combat. Just social justice it's just cancer. This critical race theory, this social justice warrior stuff is just a cancer on our society. And you see China taking advantage of it. They grandstand and embarrass our country in our country. And guess what? We can't do anything about it because our president spits in the face of our country. He spits on the grave of our troops. He spits he just spits on our flag. He spits on our Constitution. He spits on our laws. He spits on our values. He doesn't care about this country. He thinks our country is inherently bad. How is that supposed to be our leader? I don't understand. So that's going to be it for now, folks. I'm going to be posting up one more video here in a few hours. Until then, I'll see y'all later. Have a good one. Bye.